In other business news now, it has emerged that the South African public is buying less food than before due to a large decline in spending power. According to Debt Rescue, that's with 1 in 4 households going hungry as a result of redirecting funds. This is attributed to a combination of factors, including elevated inflation, the high interest rate and the cost of petrol despite a recent drop. Debt Rescue's Annaline van der Poel discusses this with us. Thank you so much for your time, Annaline. Based on the current environment, is hunger becoming the new normal for South Africa?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Indeed, unfortunately, it really is. It's something that's been around for many years, that we know that South African consumers are struggling financially. But realistically, that is exactly what they are facing. They're turning to credit to put food on the table, and in many cases, they don't have access to it anymore. From our research, we've actually seen that people have made dramatic changes to the way they buy and the way they prepare food and the way they feed themselves even. And definitely it's because of the cost of living and the inability to feed themselves properly.
We must also then talk about the impact of the petrol price contributing to inflation and therefore also the impending hunger crisis, as it has that domino effect when it comes to the costing of food products.
Indeed. For us as consumers, it's always the direct impact. If the fuel price goes up, it means our transport's going to cost us more. If it comes down, we see a little bit of relief. But the secondary impact is, of course, the fact that in South Africa, everything is transported by road. And that's diesel in the vast majority of cases. So each time we see a hike in fuel prices, especially if it's in diesel, it means that our cost of goods that are transported, across the country is going to go up. So the prices we see in the stores keep increasing because of that as well, over and above all the other factors. And unfortunately, what we're not seeing is when it comes down, we're not seeing that those reductions necessarily pass down to us, or not at the speed at which they pass down to us when they go up.
What are we seeing then in a trend in South Africa where the most impacted are a specific group of the South African economy?
Well, absolutely. I mean, obviously, when it comes to the basic goods that form part of our expenses, and when we're not talking debt, if we just talk living expenses, your lower and middle income groups are going to feel it harder because, a family of 3 is a family of 3, and we might have different eating habits or ingredients, but it generally is felt more there. But because of the impact of the cost of debt, we can say that all income groups are being affected by the fact that if you have any form of debt, your debt is significantly more expensive than it was 4 years ago. And unfortunately, we're not seeing any stabilization or enough stabilization coming in the inflation for the Reserve Bank to consider at this point reducing interest rates. So for the average consumer, our budget is being affected in 2 parts. Our living expenses are going up, even if it's at a slower rate. Inflation is affecting our cost of living, and our debt is still incredibly high with the high interest rates.
The near-term outlooks are not necessarily positive, so what can or should be done to turn the situation around, especially in the short term?
Well, I think in the short term, the things that have been called for so long have been obviously looking at the way our fuel price is structured, the manner in which the price is comprised and what it consists of. The AA has called for that for a very, very long time. And I think that'll bring immediate relief and definitely affect our cost of goods. And then on the other side is obviously we're very grateful we haven't had load shedding for quite a period of time, that we hope that sustains, because as long as we have electricity, we can carry on manufacturing and we don't have to incur further costs to manufacture and produce in businesses. And we have to make sure that the country is investment friendly. We need to create jobs. Our biggest problem we have at the moment is our 32% plus unemployment rate. As long as people are not earning incomes, they're not contributing to the economy over and above the fact that they're not able to feed their families. So job creation has to be high, very, very high on everybody's agenda at this point. How do we stimulate the economy to create jobs for people?
Lastly, on the note of your latter parts of that statement, how will the election outcomes then heading towards that formation of a government of national unity impact on consumers in this regard?
Well, it's difficult to say because obviously there's a lot that still has to happen. We know we've obviously seen what the media and the likes have indicated as to, what could possibly happen. I think the most important thing that has to happen is we've got to make sure that we keep our currency stable. We can't see massive fluctuations. Especially with we import our oil in terms of the rand dollar exchange rate for oil, etc. So the core factors here are going to have to be make sure that there's a stable move here, keep our currency stable, and make sure that there's nothing that could scare investors from investing in this country and remaining in this country. It's really, really important that that's the message that gets sent out there.
Thank you so much for your time. Annaline Poel, COO at Debt Rescue, talking to us about their latest reading when it comes to the rising cost of living in South Africa and 1 in 4 households battling to put food on the table.